So Dr. Chatterjee, you're on an extraordinary mission in the UK, and you've created a show called Doctor in the House, a BBC show, where you go into people's homes and help them transform their lives using functional medicine. Tell us, why are you doing this, and what do you expect to get out of this?
This show, Doctor in the House, is a series of documentaries that's gone out on BBC television, and I think what my aim with the show is to demonstrate to people that actually no matter what condition you have, there are things that you can do with your lifestyle every single day that are going to improve it. Now look, sometimes you can reverse disease, you can absolutely prevent disease, but even if you don't have a label or a disease, actually making changes to your nutrition, making changes to your lifestyle can actually improve the way you feel. Whether that's just your mood, your energy levels, fatigue, all these things. And I don't think people really realize that. So I've been very lucky to actually have this opportunity. And whether it's type 2 diabetes, which I helped a lady reverse in 30 days, which 2 years on, she still does not have type 2 diabetes. Or whether it's fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia pains went in 6 weeks, or anxiety attacks went down by 80% in 6 weeks, right? I used a different approach. Well, Mark, functional medicine, I used that framework to help me look at these problems in a different way.
So it's really kind of extraordinary when you think about the show. It's called Doctor in the House, and you literally go into people's homes, you stay with them, you watch them, you explore their house, you understand the patterns that are going on there. What exactly do? You go into the house and just hang out and look in their fridge, or cook with them, or tell us about how this all works.
Yeah, well, it really depends on what that family's complaint is. So the first thing to understand is that I don't know when I knock on the door for the first time, I don't actually really know what's going on there, okay? So I'm not involved with choosing who that patient is and what their problem is. My job is, like it is with every patient in my clinic, is to do the best that I can for them. Mm-hmm. So in this last series, there was quite a pretty complex cases, actually, much more complex in the first series. But when you strip these things back and you look at what are the factors in that person's life that is contributing to the way they feel, you can always do something, always. Mm-hmm. So look, what do I do? Well, in the lady who had type 2 diabetes, what's amazing about going into someone's house is that you start to see things that you would never see in your clinic, right? Yeah. So in clinic, we ask patients questions, right? And they give us answers. But the thing is that often they won't tell us the truth. And that's not because they want to lie to us. It's because they will filter the information that they think you need to hear. Mm-hmm. So what was happening in their house? I was seeing breakfast, lunch, dinner, nighttime snack. What is in their fridge? What are they really eating rather than what they tell me they're eating? So on a personal level...
So you do a fridge biopsy.
I did a fridge biopsy. Yeah, absolutely. But not in every case, right? Not in every single case. But there was a few cases where I had to go in and actually really re-educate them on what should be in their kitchen.
So when you went in there, what were you finding? We often as doctors don't get that window.
Yeah.
But it's extraordinary to actually see how people are living, their stress levels, whether they're exercising, how they manage their lives, what they're buying, what's in their cupboards, how they're cooking, when they eat. You get to see an extraordinary amount of information that tells you something. So what were the things that you found?
Yeah, well, it's the things we know well, Mark, the things we talk about all the time, but it's always comes down to the same sort of things. In people's kitchens, there's too many refined and processed carbohydrates, breakfast cereals, refined breads that have sugar as an ingredient.
A double whammy, flour and sugar.
Yeah, ready meals.
It's like bread that doubles as cake.
Yeah, exactly. And then you open the cupboards and you see all the soft drinks, the carbonated drinks, even the diet drinks. There is so much in there that I think sometimes we, in the health world, we talk about these things. We assume that actually the message is getting out there. But actually, you go out there in the real world and people still don't know how toxic these foods are for the way that their bodies feel, but also how their brains feel. So food was a big thing. And it always, it never ceases to amaze me how simple changes to someone's diet within days can impact the way they feel.
Days, right?
Within days.
And as a doctor practicing medicine, we prescribe drugs.
Yeah.
And we rarely see drugs have that big an impact in such a short time.
Yeah.
Even in a long time.
Yeah, well, and I think what's interesting for me, because I am on a mission in the UK, and I'm on a mission to help transform the way that the public view health. Because I think we see, we talk about brain health, right? I think we see the brain as separate from the body. And I think we see the heart as separate from the liver, as separate from the gut. And what we're realizing now is that the body is, this interconnected being. Everything, your hormones influence your brain, your gut microbiome influences your brain. Everything interacts with each other, right?
You're talking about going into people's homes and noticing things that cause brain damage. What were the things you found that were most affecting people's brains and cognition and ability to focus and be present?
I think there's 4 key things that I saw in people's houses that were affecting their brain. And they're the 4 things that I think affect our health in general, and the 4 things that I think we've all got control over. So what we're eating, how we're moving, the quality of our sleep, and our stress levels. So the top 2 for me that I saw would be food and stress.
Yeah.
Okay? So I think stress is something that people often don't think about with their brain health. And I think it's a big problem these days. We're living in a society where we're overworked, we're underslept. We've got a constant stream of emails, tweets, Facebook. We're never switching off. And, for me, I find my email inbox stressful, okay? And we know that this kind of psychosocial stress raises levels of our stress hormone, cortisol. And cortisol damages our brain, or, if cortisol is too high for too long, it can, damage the cells in our hippocampus, which is where we lay down our memory, right? So I think if people really understood that, and we can help people understand that actually the stress in our lives is impacting our brain function.
Yeah.
And, I always talk to people, get 10, 15 minutes of me time every day, something, switch your devices off, just sit there, read a book, meditate, do some yoga, something, but just focus on that one task. I see that having profound impacts all the time. And I make it simple, Mark, for people. I have made deals with my patients before. They say to me, doctor, meditation, and I've heard about that, but I don't have time to meditate.
Yeah.
I said, okay, can you commit to 2 minutes a day? And they're shocked, right? Because they think I'm going to say they have to do 20 minutes a day. And I remember on the first series of Doctor in the House, I had a lady with menopausal symptoms, right? And her doctor wanted to prescribe hormones for her. She didn't want that. And again, in 4 weeks, we got her menopausal symptoms down from 15 out of 17 on the British Menopausal Society questionnaire, down to 2 out of 17. And a critical component of that was this kind of 15-minute relaxation in the evening. And I made a deal with her. I said, look, you have 4 minutes to brush your teeth every day, right? She goes, yeah. I said, why is that? And she said to me, well, because it's been prioritized since I've been a child, right? So that's just my normal habit. I said, let's make that meditation your normal habit, but let's start with 2 minutes a day. And if you start with 2 minutes, that becomes 5 minutes, that becomes 10. But if I start with 15, 20 minutes, they do it for 2 days, they don't manage to do it the 3rd day, and they give up.
Yeah.
So
that's powerful. Yeah. No, stress, that's very powerful, because meditation, people don't realize, I think it's just a way of relaxing, but it actually reprograms your biology. It increases stem cell production. It decreases inflammation. It boosts your immune system. It helps regulate your hormones. It improves your blood sugar control. I mean, it's got massive effects. And I think one thing people don't realize about stress is that it causes a leaky brain. We talk about leaky gut, but there's a barrier in the brain that protects the brain. And when there's stress, that barrier breaks down, and a lot of outside influences can harm the brain. This is quite extraordinary. So tell me more about this gut issue, because I know that you focused a lot on the gut. You were sharing a story about an obese kid who had gut issues that allowed him to sort of fix those and ended up helping him lose a lot of weight. How do you approach the gut from a point of view of functional medicine within these patients?
Yeah, look, I think this is something I didn't learn at medical school. But this has been part of the training with the Institute of Functional Medicine, and all the additional education that I now do. I've learned that the health of the gut is critical, yes, for the health of the brain, but also plays a critical role in things like obesity, mood problems, all kinds of things. So how do I approach it? Well, first of all, I want to understand what that patient is eating. Okay, because we know that the biggest and the fastest way to change the health and the composition of your gut bugs is by changing your diet, right? So there's so many tests you can do. I sometimes run stool tests to have a look at, what is the combination of bugs inside us. And I think, a lot of people still don't understand that we've got trillions of bugs that live inside us. And actually, it's the combination of those bugs and the community that is probably more important than actually the individual components. And one of the biggest measures I look for now is the diversity. How diverse is your gut? And depending on what I find, that will also dictate what I then do with the patient. So this 11-year-old boy you mentioned, who was obese, he was extremely obese, and he was struggling with his weight. His fasting insulin was 33. Now, depending which doctor you ask, we want to see a fasting insulin under 4, certainly under 6. So 33.
It's off the chart.
Off the charts. And, in 6 weeks, we got it to 9.5, from 33. But we did it with 2 measures. We cut out refined and processed carbohydrates. So things like your refined breads, your cereals, the sweet drinks, the muffins, the donuts, And we increased healthy natural fats, a lot of avocados, a lot of nuts, a lot of good quality meat and fatty fish. But also we put a rainbow chart on this little boy's fridge, and all the colors of the rainbow were there. And I said, you have to tick off every color every single day. Okay, and he did it.
Not by eating Skittles, though.
Not by eating Skittles. So, you've got, you've got the lycopene in tomatoes, right? Or as you guys say, tomatoes. We've got, you've got the blue, purple pigment in blueberries, right? But what people don't realize, I think, is that there is communication between our gut and our brain, right? When our gut makes chemicals, and those chemicals via the vagus nerve actually attach to receptors in our brain, and that can change the way our brain operates. So it's very, very powerful to understand that by changing what you eat, changing the health of your gut, you change the health of your brain. And fiber, I think, is very, very key. So I'm not talking about all brand. I'm talking about the fiber from plant foods. Like if you eat every color of the rainbow every single day, you're going to get lots of different sources of fiber. So the fiber comes down, your gut bugs feed on that fiber, and they make short-chain fatty acids. So these are chemicals really that are anti-inflammatory. They help our immune system. Some studies are showing they're anti-cancer. So it's really incredible just by increasing plant-based fiber in your diet. Not only are you getting all these polyphenols, not only are you getting all these lovely phytonutrients, but you're also making compounds in your gut that influence your brain. I think it's remarkable.
It's interesting you mentioned the sort of short-chain fatty acids. Most people don't know what those are, but they're basically the fuel that the bacteria make to feed your colon cells. So it's really a very symbiotic relationship. And we know that, for example, like you said, all these fibers help one of the most important compounds called butyrate. But when you eat wheat flour, which I don't mean whole wheat or regular wheat, flour is treated with a compound called calcium propionate, which is another short-chain fat that's very toxic and can cause ADD, behavior problems, autism, inflammation. In fact, in animal models, it induces autistic behavior when you inject it into the animals. So by eating all this bread and processed food, not only are we getting the sugar, but we're getting some of these really adverse compounds. So, a lot of people suggest that, this approach, functional medicine, is expensive, it's difficult, it's hard to do. If you don't have resources, how do you get it done? The testing, the supplements. But the truth is, you and I know that it actually isn't that hard. That with basic principles, like you mentioned, food, sleep, exercise, stress reduction, most of which are either free or food you have to buy anyway, you just change what you buy, you can actually have an enormous impact on your health. So how do you do this if you don't have resources?
Yeah, Mark, that's a great question. And it's something that people always say. And even when I went around the country in the UK filming Doctor in the House, I would stay with families from all different socioeconomic backgrounds. So cost would sometimes come up. But what I've realized, like you've already mentioned, is that 80%, I would say, is free. Right? 80% of what we need to do with our lifestyles, for most people, it is freely available to us. So if we talk about these 4 pillars, food, sleep, movement, and relaxation, okay, what can people do in their diet? Well, very simply, if you reduce refined and processed carbohydrates, breads, muffins, pastas, these ones that are highly processed, and you increase healthy natural fats like avocados, nuts, fatty fish, that's something you can do immediately with your food that's going to have an impact on your health.
That's true.
Movement, okay? Whatever someone is currently doing with their movement, they can self-assess and go, am I moving enough? If not, maybe something simple like just putting an alarm on your phone once every hour to remind you to get up and walk around the block. Or, a tip I say is drink more water, because if you drink more water, then you have to get up regularly to go and pee, right? But it gets you up, okay?
If that's your only exercise, go to the bathroom. I think you're in trouble.
Hey, I agree, but look, it's about
nothing.
meeting people where they're at, right?
Sure.
And it's all very well for me to say, you need to do X amount of exercise every day. And that will work for some people, but I like to break it down and make it simple. Whatever somebody is currently doing, if they move more, that's going to have an impact.
Absolutely.
Right? On their physical health, on their brain health. And I like the 10,000 step, that you target. I think it's a really good, easily measurable target for people. I've seen it with patients. They get to the evening, they've only done 6,500 steps, and they're like, I'm going to go for a quick walk before dinner. So it's something measurable for people. But the other thing with movement is I think we've really neglected muscle and strength training. And I always talk to my patients, whether they're 20-year-old patients who want to get fitter and stronger, or whether it's a 75-year-old patient, I go through, and I'm there in the consultation room with them, showing them exercises. Because what I've realized, Mark, is that you can refer out to various specialists, but there's something powerful in that interaction with that patient. If I then take my jacket off and say, hey, look, what about this? Can you do this? And I will do that in the consultation room with them to inspire them, because our job, I believe, is to inspire a patient when they walk out, to make them feel, I can do this.
So you drop down to 50 push-ups in the exam room?
Hey, I have done that, but no, sometimes I've got patients, let's say a 72-year-old lady I had in clinic a couple of weeks ago, and she was nervous. I said, okay, well, look, I've got this thing that I call a 5-minute kitchen workout, right, that I teach people to do in their kitchen. So I try and remove the obstacle of paying for a gym membership, getting a personal trainer. Hey, look, I love the gym, and people like having a personal trainer. That's great. But I'm saying you can do a 5-minute strength workout in your kitchen every single day. And a recent couple I treated, right, I think they were in their early 60s. They hadn't done any form of strength training for maybe 20, 30 years. And they were concerned about their brain health. Okay, and they said, well, doctor, what can I do? And I explained to them how strength training is very important for their bodies, and how, exercise in general, but strength training also increases levels of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is like
Miracle grow for your brain.
Exactly, miracle grow for your brain. Who doesn't want miracle grow for your brain, right? And they were nervous, so I showed them what they could do in their kitchen. Just 5 simple exercises: a wall press up, a kitchen worktop dip, right? And I showed them and I talked them through it. And when they came back a few weeks later, they said, Doc, we were scared, but we started doing it in the kitchen. And within 2 weeks, they were doing it 7 days a week in their landing upstairs while their evening bath was running. So this is a couple in their 60s, no strength training at all, but by showing them that it is free, it is simple, and it is doable, they felt great, and they started doing it every day. And I think every single patient has the ability to do that.
It's true. I mean, I often do what I call the 7-minute workout. So it's 2 minutes longer than the 5. And it's all you need is a chair. And your own body. And it's powerful. And it's a high-intensity workout. It's strength training. And it's portable. And you can do it anywhere. And it's extraordinary, the power of that. I hadn't done a ton of interval training. And I do this bicycle loop where I do it in about, usually, 55 minutes. And all winter I didn't ride my bike, and I did this 7-minute training. And when I started riding my bike in the spring, I was riding 5 minutes faster day one, which was sort of striking to me that my body responded that easily and quickly. So it's very powerful.
But I was going to say, Mark, sleep is something that I don't think people realize how important sleep is. And you know, if we talk about brain health, and we talk about the beta amyloid protein, this protein which accumulates in our brain in conditions like Alzheimer's disease, we know that when we sleep deeply and we sleep for long enough, actually our body processes a lot of this waste that builds up, including beta amyloid protein, and clears it out. So if we're
like your brain only detoxifies at night.
Exactly. And what I think is so powerful about that is if you explain that to a patient, so you give them the science that they need to understand how important that sleep is. So it's not just about, hey, you need to sleep more, right? Because everyone knows that. Okay, but how are we going to help our patients sleep better? The first thing is we have to explain to them why it's important for them. Okay? If we've done that, then often all someone needs to do is prioritize their sleep. Okay? For many people, that's all they have to do, because in the world that we're living in today, okay, if we're not prioritizing sleep, sleep tends to fall by the wayside. You know, there's too many temptations, you know, with Netflix or whatever. There's so, you know, and I'm as guilty as anyone, right? Of being tempted. So sometimes all people have to do is, and I say to them, I say, look, what about for the next 7 days? All you do is you go to bed half an hour a night earlier and tell me how you feel in 7 days. I'm telling you, more often than not, people feel better. They make better food choices the next day because they've slept better. They've got more energy. They feel sharper in their brain. Their brain fog has gone down. And these are simple, free interventions that people can do. You know, that doesn't cost money, right?
No.
Doesn't cost anything.
No. And you know, the food thing is interesting because we often think that eating well is expensive. And you don't have to get the most expensive cut of meat or the most expensive rare vegetables. But eating just real food doesn't have to be that much more. In fact, I went to this family, it's part of the Dr. Oz show that I was on, where we went in Florida, and they lived in a, you know, kind of a very small little house, family of 6, very poor. And we got them eating real food. And I went down to their house and visited them, and I saw, you know, coconut oil and almonds and, you know, avocados. And I said, wow, isn't this expensive for you? And they were like, no, it's actually cheaper than what we were eating before, because we bought a case of soda for each of our family every week. You know, and you start cutting out all the stuff that they're buying and the processed food, which is actually pretty expensive when you think of pennies per nutrient.
Yeah.
You know, when you actually look at how nutrient poor it is, you're getting not very much for your money. You're getting a lot of calories, but not a lot of nutrients. And so they actually felt better. They lost, I think, 300 pounds as a family.
Wow.
And they loved it, and they started spreading to their relatives, and it was done on a budget. And I think there's a big myth about how it's expensive to eat real food. It's really not.
Yeah, the first family I ever went to as part of my documentary series, Doctor in the House, I remember really clearly the very first day I met the family, okay, and I had not diagnosed type 2 diabetes at that point because I hadn't run bloods, hadn't done anything yet, and they didn't know what was going on with the health. That's what I came in. And the evening, the father of that family said, hey, Doc, come on, let's go, let's, you know, I'll tell you what we normally eat. So I went in the car with him, and we drove 15 minutes out of town to a fast food restaurant, and we went through the drive-thru, and he ordered 4 meals, but each family member, so there's 4 people in the family, had 2 meals each, right? And this cost £48, okay?
Wow.
So we're talking about, you know, $65, something like that.
Yeah.
That's just for one evening meal, and they were doing this about 5 nights.
That's right.
A
People
week.
don't realize,
Yeah. And it was amazing because what was interesting about that, though, is he said, Doc, I feel a bit embarrassed that you're going to see all this. I said, hey, don't. Look, I just want to observe what you know, the more I know about what you're currently doing, the more I can help you. And what was interesting is that, A, that's a lot of money. And when I moved them over to eating real, fresh, whole food, they were saving money.
Saving money, right?
Right? But the other thing was, he felt bad in front of me that he was eating this. So actually on one level, intuitively, as a family, they knew that actually what they were eating wasn't particularly good for them. And I'm interested as to, I think a lot of people around the country, right, around the world know that fast food and junk food is probably not good for them. So the question is, why are they not changing?
Because they don't know what to do.
Exactly. And that's the key. That's what we need to help them see what else they can do.
Yeah, it's powerful. And I think that's true. I observed the same thing. And they actually don't know what to do. They know what not to do. They sort of try not to do it. But, if you take a chicken, a couple of chickens, whole chickens, throw them in the oven, make a salad, roasted sweet potatoes, that's much less expensive to feed a family of 4 than, going to fast food and spending $60.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think it's really important that message gets out.
And by the time he gets there, comes back, it's about the same amount of time spent, actually.
Yeah, I said that to him. And then there's the gas cost of driving 15 minutes there and back. That's half an hour of driving.
Yeah.
And a $65 meal. Yeah. That's a lot of money if you're doing that 5 nights a week.
Right.
So it's really remarkable.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of time in the wellness community, we often don't think that actually, or we don't have that realization that there's actually a lot of communities out there who don't know this and need help and understanding. And I'll tell you something I feel incredibly passionate about. I don't know what it's like in the US, but in the UK, a lot of doctors will say, patients don't listen. They don't listen to what we tell them. And I've got a problem with that because I genuinely believe that people don't want to be unwell. And if we can explain it to that patient in a language that they understand, that it means something to them, I find by and large people want to make that change.
They do.
But if we do this, right, if you've got 10 minutes with a patient, right, or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and you say to someone with type 2 diabetes, right, which we know can also affect your brain, the blood sugar, right? But if you say to them, you talk to them about medication, about what you need to do and what drugs you're going to need to be on. And right at the end, you say, yeah, but also if you can just change your diet, lose some weight, that's going to help you. That's very different from starting off and saying, hey, you've got this condition, right? Yeah, we've got some drugs, but look, there's plenty you can do with your lifestyle. I'm going to teach you, I'm going to show you what you can do. Are you interested? I tell you, people say yes, right? So I think it's the way that we don't prioritize it as a profession. We assume patients won't do it.
Yeah, sure. We say, well, I told them to lose weight and eat better and exercise, and they didn't do it. I'm like, how helpful is that? Eat better, exercise. I'll see you in 3 months. If that doesn't work, we'll use drugs. Well, that is not good medicine. Right?
Exactly. So I think we can make a difference. We can change people's health, and people want to get healthier. People want their brains to function. Who wants to wake up with brain fog, right? Nobody wants that, right? Because it impacts not only their health, but it impacts their relationships with their spouses, with their children, with their work colleagues. That then causes more stress. Stress raises cortisol. Cortisol starts to damage your brain, and you're in this vicious cycle, right? So what we need to find is the lever to turn for that patient to start, instead of a negative cycle, let's start a positive cycle that helps feeding more and more health.
Yeah. So Dr. Chatterjee, how do you keep your brain healthy? What do you do every day to maintain your health? I mean, you work hard, you travel, you're on a TV show, you have a clinic. I mean, it's not easy, right?
It's not easy.
Family, 2 kids.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. It's not easy, particularly when traveling, because when you're in your own environment and you've got everything surrounded by you that actually helps you stay healthy, it's okay. But obviously, I'm traveling at the moment, traveling out here to see you and do our filming, and it is incredibly difficult. So what do I do? Okay, first of all, I'm prepared. Okay. I remember you saying it a few years back about don't get yourself in a food emergency, right? And I think you're spot on, because if you're not prepared, you're going to find yourself hungry, tired, craving something. And if you're in an airport, often, there's nothing but sugar or processed foods, right? So how do I keep myself healthy? Because I do live and breathe this myself, okay? So again, I talk about food, movement, sleep, relaxation. Food. I will eat whole, real food pretty much every day, even when I'm traveling. Did I do that 6-7 years ago? No. Okay. It was a slow process. Was it hard at first? Yeah. It had its challenges, but now it's normal for me.
It's automatic.
It's automatic. I'm not even tempted anymore. My taste buds have shifted, right? I've retuned them in to what whole natural food is. So I will eat that every day. I will carry with me, I'll take tins of wild salmon with me when I'm on the road. It'll be in my backpack just in case I'm hungry. I can peel it open and have something, right? I will make sure that I work out every day, even if it means from my bed, if I just hit the deck and do push-ups and tricep dips and squats, right? Sometimes that's all I'll do, but that it all helps. It doesn't have to be a 1 hour gym workout. Little bits can really help. I will prioritize sleep. Okay, that's something that changed for me maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, as doctors, we're trained, who needs sleep? Stay up all night, be on call, look at babies.
But I would genuinely switch off at home. I will switch off maybe at sort of 8:30. That's my cutoff. I will put my computer off. I won't answer emails. I often won't take calls after that time. And I will get to bed early, because I find when I do that, everything else gets easier. But my weak spot, the one area I struggle with, is the stress piece, because running around trying to do multiple things, I find it tricky.
Yeah.
But I tell you, when my son was 3 years old, when he was a bit younger, I remember he wouldn't sleep very well. Okay, he'd be up several times a night, but I disciplined myself to get up early and do just 5 minutes of meditation every morning. And I tell you, I felt like a different person.
Totally.
My energy went up. I was less reactive in the day. Recently, that's fallen off again. Okay, and that's the one area I struggle with. Is trying to discipline myself to do that. And for me, if I do it when I get up, it happens.
Yeah.
If I don't, it doesn't happen. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's powerful. I people say, well, I'm too busy to meditate. Well, I find I'm too busy not to meditate.
Yeah.
That just taking that time in the morning, I can do it in the car, on a plane, I can do it in a subway, even at the end of the day. I always try to do it 20 minutes twice a day, and I think, well, 40 minutes, who has 40 minutes in a day? But it's made everything else so much better. It's made me more focused, more ability to think, have more energy, better sleep, less anxious, less reactive, better able to be present for what I'm doing. And it's kind of magic. And I never would have imagined it was that powerful. And I think people underestimate the importance of hitting the pause button and stopping the stress response, which happens automatically, but the profound relaxation and healing that comes with meditation or some similar practice is just not something that happens automatically. It actually has to be an active process.
Yeah, I agree, Mark. And I think one thing we have to do as a community is demystify meditation, because I think lots of people have lots of hang-ups about it. Is it religious? Is it deeply spiritual? Is it, do I need to sit and chant they've got all these kind of misconceptions.
It's like exercise for your brain.
Yeah, exactly. But it can be, let me give you an example. So my wife, she cannot stand the thought of plugging into an app and having someone guide her through a meditation, right? Because she can switch off naturally. And so she doesn't like that. Me, for example, I struggle a bit with that. So I like the act of plugging into my app and pressing play and someone talking me through it, right? 2 different ways of doing it, but they suit different people. So I think there are many ways that people can meditate and or be mindful, and as you say, it's simply about pressing that pause button, and it doesn't matter how you do it. And actually with some patients, I say, you know what? Maybe for you, it's as simple as finding your favorite bit of music, right? Putting it on and immersing yourself in it, but don't be scrolling your phone at the same time. To put the lights off, close your eyes and just listen intently to that music. That is a form of meditation, right? Sure. So it's about finding the right one for that patient, I think. Is food medicine?
Absolutely. I mean, there is no doubt about it. William Lee just wrote a book called Eat to Beat Disease, who's a Harvard physician.
Yeah, I'm not ready. I've seen it everywhere. I've not actually read that book.
It's really brilliant. But he showed a slide, and these very sophisticated analyses testing food components compared to drug components. So a blood pressure drug, a cholesterol drug, heart failure drug, whatever the drug is, and looked at various food components and how it compared in terms of the effectiveness, using very sophisticated models for testing these in biology. And they found that almost every single time food beat out the drug in terms of effectiveness.
Wow.
And what food is far more than calories, as I was talking about. Not all calories are the same. That's the biggest myth that's perpetuating everything. Because in the fast food world, if all calories are the same, it doesn't matter if it's KFC or soda or French fries. As long as you balance your calories, doesn't matter what you eat. That's not true, because food is information. So we know that food influences the body in multiple ways. One, it changes gene expression. You literally can turn on or off genes
by what you eat. If you eat broccoli, you can turn on genes that help you detoxify and produce glutathione, right? If you eat green tea, drink green tea, you increase the level of catechins, which have the ability to detoxify heavy metals and activate various enzymes. If you eat the right foods, you can balance your hormones. If you eat the wrong foods, you eat too much insulin, your testosterone goes down. If you eat too much sugar, if you eat the right fats, it's the opposite. If you look at what it does to your brain chemistry, you can either hijack your brain chemistry or it can make you calm and peaceful in your mood. It can change your microbiome. You literally have trillions of bacteria in your gut that control almost every function of your body. And when you eat the wrong foods, you grow the bad ones that make you sick. And when you eat the right foods, you grow the good ones that make you healthy. So literally with every bite in real time, you're changing your biochemistry, your physiology, your genetics every single minute of the day.
Yeah. Yep. You're absolutely right. I mean, it is that powerful.
I mean, this is not my opinion, by the way. This is just hard science.
Yeah. And I would extend that out. Of course, we're talking about food, but even sleep. There's really good studies showing that a single night sleep deprivation changes the expression, I think, of over 700 genes.
Yeah.
You know, that if you haven't slept well, the genes that actually predispose to inflammation, the pro-inflammatory genes get turned on, and the anti-inflammatory ones start getting switched off. Yep. So our lifestyle literally is medicine. It's not just prevention of health problems. It can often be used as the treatment as well. And that's something that I think is still not recognized enough. It always comes down to prevention. And of course, prevention is better than cure. Sure. But you can use lifestyle a lot of the time as treatment as well.
As like the story with Janice. I mean, we weren't preventing her heart failure, preventing her diabetes, preventing her high blood pressure. We were treating it with food and with lifestyle. So yes, food is medicine, exercise is medicine, sleep is medicine, stress reduction is medicine, connection and love is medicine.
Yeah.
These are all medicines.
And
they work well, better than drugs.
And most importantly, this is the medicine we need primarily for the health problems of the 21st century.
Yeah.
That's the key. Maybe 30, 40 years ago, maybe we didn't need these things as medicine in the same way. Maybe our conventional opinion of medicine, like a drug that we prescribe, if you've got an acute problem and you come in with that, I can understand where that rationale has come from. But the health landscape of the US, of the UK, has changed dramatically. So we now need these lifestyle tools as our medicine.
By the way, twice as many people die from chronic lifestyle diseases as infectious disease, not just here, but globally.
Yeah.
So even in Africa, they're suffering the double burden of malnutrition and obesity.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. It's slightly ironic in many ways. And I think not calling food medicine, I think, is doing our patients a disservice, because then it's not put on the same level or a higher level than, let's say, the pharmaceutical drug that we might have to offer. And I think that's the danger when we don't talk about it in these terms.
I mean, listen, what happened to Jess? There's no drug on the planet that can do that. There's no drug on the planet that can reverse your need for insulin in 3 days, or can reverse your heart failure, or can reverse your kidney failure. They just don't exist.
Yeah.
And food can do it. And I've seen it over and over again. I may sound like a crazy man, but the truth is, this is actually what the science shows, is actually what people who are using food in this way see all the time.
Well, you don't sound crazy. You know what you sound like? You sound like someone
a little crazy
who has been practicing medicine for many years. How many years now?
32?
32 years of seeing tens of thousands of patients. You have seen firsthand the impact, and literally, you just sound someone to me who's just very passionate. You've seen it. You've seen the structural problems, and you want to take on something that not many people are taking on. You're not writing another book. You've written many great books, but this feels very different to me. This is taking on the political structure, the economic structure. You're looking at food in a different way. And I think that's very, very important. And I want to thank you for that, because I think it's very important that this sort of message gets out there. Coming back to systemic change, and we talked about making the food environment easier, and we're talking about prisons. I want to talk about schools. So I'm a father, as you are. I've got 2 young children. They're both at primary school at the moment. And what's interesting for me is that while my kids are a bit younger, they're currently 9 and 6, I was okay at sort of, I wouldn't say controlling, but I could sort of control in many ways.
You make lunch, you feed them breakfast, you feed them
what
dinner.
They're eating.
Yeah.
And as my children are getting older, particularly my son now who's 9, and he's been exposed to more and more things, it's getting harder and harder. So This may be controversial to some, but I'm going to share my view on this. So on the final day of school last year, before the summer break, a lot of the teachers brought in Haribos for the kids.
What's that?
So Haribos are a very popular food make, certainly in the UK, of sweets, candy, basically.
Okay.
I don't know if they're here or you must have an equivalent here.
Yeah, probably.
But these are bags of sweets that are very, very common. Now, the reality is my kids don't eat that stuff because I've never given it to them. Now, you know, a lot of people will probably say, well, that's too brutal. You need to expose them to this sort of stuff. And, you know, I, like all parents, I'm trying to do the best that I can. Mm-hmm. This is what I consider to be the best decision. Maybe time will tell that I was wrong, but I'm certainly trying to do the best that I can.
You should have given them more junk food.
No, but it's about trying to teach them a balance. And I just think the norm in society is so skewed away from health at the moment that fitting in with what is quite a sick society, I don't think necessarily is biologically normal. I don't think it's the right thing. And so I'm trying to protect my kids as much as possible. Now, Jamie Oliver has been involved with trying to change various things in the UK. I helped him with his last campaign about junk food advertising. And I think that's something that is different in Europe compared to America. Yeah. We do have some regulation around that. Maybe it's not perfect, but there is something still there. Now, at the last meeting, I was down in Jamie's office where a lot of opinion makers were there. We were discussing this. There was this whole idea of schools being a safe zone came up. Yeah. And for me, I really like that. It's something I've been talking about for years, that essentially a school or a hospital or even a prison, right? But let's get back to schools, particularly schools. I think schools should be the model educationally, but also health-wise. I genuinely don't see why there is a case in 2019 and 2020 why, when we're facing this chronic disease epidemic, when in the UK, 1 in 3 kids leave primary school to go to secondary school at the age of 10 or 11 are either overweight or obese, I find it very hard to justify the case now where any school should be serving these sort of these sweets, sugar sweetened beverages, packets of sweets, because what that also does is it normalizes the food. Yeah. It allows us to start associating reward and doing well with sweet food. And you know what? I had difficult conversations with my son. My son said to me, "Daddy, why is everyone having a Haribo at school? I mean, you've been telling me this isn't very good for my health, but why is everyone giving it out?" And so what does that do? This is another problem which is not getting spoken about enough, Mark, is that if you are a parent who is trying to do the right thing with your
Very
children,
tough.
You're then making your children social outcasts because they're not engaging in a society that is actually engaging in a lot of unhealthy behaviors. I'm confused. Help me out, Mark.
Well, you know, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in the United States, schools have been infiltrated by the food industry. 80% of schools have contract with soda companies. 50% of schools sell brand name fast food at lunch. McDonald's, Burger King, Domino's Pizza.
In schools.
In schools.
I mean, I don't know if happens in the UK. If anyone knows about that, please tweet me and Mark and let us know, or let us know on Instagram. That'd be super interesting.
I went to a school,
but I'm not aware of that.
I went to an underserved school in Cleveland, and it was a poor African American Hispanic school. 43% of kids are absent. 1% by the time they graduate are qualified to go to college. I walked down the hall. There was a young girl, very overweight. One hand, she had a 32 ounce, like a liter slushy, and another 32 ounce or a liter soda in the other hand. And, you know, these schools have fast, food in them, and they have deep fryers and microwaves in the kitchen. I walked through the kitchen. There was not a stove. You couldn't cook food. It all came out of boxes, packages, processed food, so burgers, fries.
Clearly, this is a problem. It's a problem for their health. But
there's advertising in schools. So in the bathroom stalls, there's like Coca-Cola ads. I mean, it's everywhere in the schools.
Where I see the problem, Mark, is that yes, that's bad for their health. But I think the problem's deeper than that, because what that does is that it almost ingrains the kids,
of course,
in a certain way of thinking.
Hook them while they're young. Hook them while they're young.
Absolutely.
That's the science of what they're doing, and they're deliberate and intentional about it. And there are schools that are fighting back. There's, for example, a friend of mine who's created a program with the schools to rehab the kitchens, to get local chefs to create great recipes that are within the school lunch budget and the school lunch guidelines, and has revolutionized the Boston City School District. And the mayor is now involved, and they literally have transformed schools and getting these kids eating real whole healthy food that they love.
What about the parents who say that actually our kids should be allowed to be sweet treats at school? It's too draconian not allowing them to have this at school. What is your view there?
Maybe they should just give them a few lines of cocaine in school along with their lunch, or a little heroin booth there where they can get a shot of heroin. I mean, listen, the science is so clear that these foods are harmful, they're deadly, they're addictive. Why would you give them to your kids? Yes, you can have a sweet treat. Yes, you can have sugar, of course, but make it from real food. Yeah. Not ultra processed food that's going to hijack your brain and your metabolism. Make a real cookie from butter and flour and sugar. That's fine.
Did Michael Pollan say, eat whatever you want as long as you make it?
Right. So you want French fries, make your French fries at home.
Yeah, because it's different when you're making it yourself.
Right.
And I think the problem also for me is if schools do this is that you take away a lot of the choice from parents. So if parents want to engage in a sweet treat with their children, actually, if they're getting loads of it at school, then they're already going past their daily quota, if you even agree with daily quotas. But you're then taking away that choice. And I feel schools should be safe zones. And then it's up to parents what they choose to do with their children outside school. That's the way I would like to see it go.
Absolutely. Schools should be safe zones. Your home should be a safe zone. I mean, there's, I once said to my son once said, I want to invite some friends over. He says, but there's nothing to eat in the house, right? What he meant was there's no junk food.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, let's go to the grocery store. And there's only one rule. You can't buy anything with trans fat in it. He went around and around and around, couldn't find one thing to buy. I mean, that's the problem. Yeah. So we can make a put at home, and we did,
Well, and that can be fun, right? We've done that with our kids. You make a healthy pizza.
Right.
You get the kids involved.
Right.
They put it in the oven. They're engaged with that. And I guess that's something we've not covered yet is you mentioned the political structure, the farming structure, the economic structure. But how important is teaching our children, teaching the population at large, one of the most basic human skills of all, which is how to cook? Yeah.
I just wrote a cookbook called Food, What the Heck Should I Cook? And a lot of the cookbook is about, there's a lot of great recipes, but here's how you can just learn how to cook with the basic skills that you can put ingredients together. You don't need a fancy recipe. And I think it's a crime that we have lost that. And it's not an accident. And this is where I talk about the food industry. In the 50s in America, there was a woman named Betty who was an advocate she was a home economics teacher, and she was an advocate for teaching families how to cook food and how to prepare food and how to grow gardens. And she was really creating this great movement. The food industry freaked out, and they said, look, they gathered all in Minnesota where the General Mills headquarters was. They bring in all the food companies, and they basically colluded to decide that we're going to make convenience a value, right? You deserve a break today. Let us do the cooking for you, right? And so they created a cookbook called the Betty Crocker Cookbook. Now, you're probably not familiar with this cookbook, but there was a cookbook. My mother had it. Pretty much every family in America had this cookbook. And the cookbook was basically recipes that included processed food. So it was like, take one bag of Ritz crackers and sprinkle it on your broccoli casserole, or add 1 can of Campbell's cream of mushroom soup to this or that. And so they were insinuating processed food. And then they came up with TV dinners, and then, we moved into fast food. And now, we had basically 2% of meals eaten outside the home in the turn of the last century. And now we have 50% of the meals eaten outside the home. And we have generations who don't know how to cook. Really don't know how to cook anything. And it's pretty frightening. So bringing that skill back is critical. I mean, how do we teach our kids things that often are irrelevant in school, but don't teach them the 3 things that matter most? How to take care of your body, and nutrition and cooking is part of that. How to have healthy relationships, and how to manage your money. We don't learn any of that in school.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great place to sort of close down this podcast. Look, those are 3 great tips on what we should be teaching kids in school. So there's many teachers who listen to this podcast. If you can actually go back to your school, if you agree with those, let us know for one on social media. If you've got some new additions to that you think we haven't mentioned, please let us know on social media. We'd love to hear from you. But in terms of we all can make a difference. If you're a teacher and you go into your school, if you're a parent and you go into your school and you have these conversations with the headmaster, with the parents' committees, I find the parents' committees sometimes actually quite problematic because the whole fundraising system around everything revolves around sugar, revolves around treats. My wife and I, we were chatting about it just this past weekend. But this podcast, as we mentioned at the start, is called Feel Better, Live More. I genuinely believe that when we feel better in ourselves, Mark, we get more out of our lives. Mm-hmm. I always like to leave my listeners with actionable tips, things that they can put into practice into their own life immediately to improve how they feel.
Yeah.
Now, because of the topic we've covered today, which is basically what you've written about in your book, Food Fix, I wonder if we could do this in two parts. The first one is, if people feel inspired by what you said, I'd recommend for a start, people go out and buy this book because I think it will really force you to re-examine what you thought about food. I think it is so well researched. You've clearly spent a lot of time delving into this, so thank you for that. But if people at home want to start making a difference to this structural food problem that exists, what are some top tips they can do?
Well, I think the first thing is, change your diet so that you're eating real food. Don't participate in this junk food culture. 2, make your home a safe zone. 3, we didn't talk about it, but food waste is a big problem. So make a compost bucket in your kitchen. You can have a home composter. You can have it in your backyard. You can have a garden. 4, if you're a parent, be a school activist. Get your schools to shift what's going on in there around healthy food. And there's a lot of examples of how to do that. 5, if you work somewhere, get your workplace to be a safe zone too. At Cleveland Clinic, the CEO eliminated any sugar-sweetened beverages from the campus. It's possible. And also think about, getting engaged with organizations that are making a difference in the food system and that are part of grassroots efforts. And there's a lot of them out there, and I detail them in the book. And then lastly, vote with your vote. Be an activist politically where you actually can make a difference. You look at the voices that are heard out there that make a difference. Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has." And I think we should remember that because our actions matter, our work matters. I mean, Greta Thunberg, the young girl who's raising consciousness about climate change. She's 16 years old. She's raising her voice. She's going up against the powers that be. She's getting attention. Each one of us can be part of that, whether it's in our homes, in our families, in our schools, in our workplaces, our communities, our faith-based communities. That's a place to start. And I think if people are interested in learning more about other ways to get involved, they should check out the book Food Fix, because I detail it in there as a real whole citizen's action guide.
Mark, I was going to go to the second part, which is how to help people on an individual level. But what's really striking is that if you make those changes that you've just mentioned,
it's all connected.
It's all connected. You will change your own health.
What you do to your body, you do to the planet. What you do to the planet, you do to your body. It's a complete circle. We live in an ecosystem, and we have to understand that everything is connected.
In terms of just finishing off then on that second point, which is semi-irrelevant given what you just said, but I think someone like yourself who's written so many books on empowering people to take control of their health, as you say, you've been seeing patients for over 30 years now. What are your top 5 tips that people can put into practice immediately?
Read your book. I mean, I hate to say it because, we work really hard, but we make a good living and we're doing good work. But what we're telling people is just common sense. Eat real food. Exercise, sleep, learn how to deal with stress, and learn how to connect to what matters in your life and the people who you love and connect with. And then that will give you the vibrancy to be a contribution to society, to be able to be a voice for change, to be able to do the things in your community. If you feel like crap, you're not going to want to do anything at schools or do anything at work. You just want to go home and watch Netflix. But if you actually feel vibrant, if you, what's your title again of the podcast? Feel better, live more. Feel better, live more. You can feel better to live more. And I think that's the purpose of it all. The purpose of it isn't some narcissistic purpose to, look great on Instagram. It's really about how do you become engaged, vibrant human being? How do you wake up every day full of life and joy and be present in your life for your relationships, for your kids, for the job that you're doing, for your family? That's what matters.
If you enjoyed that conversation, I think you are going to love the one that I had with Professor Tim Spector, all about foods. It's right there. So give it a click and let me know what you think.
If you snack a couple of hours before a meal, your metabolic response to that meal is poorer than if you didn't snack.
Okay, just say that again because I think that's really important.